Dean, are you still reeling from all of the amazing data that we provided in our last end user survey on restaurant display preferences?
Reeling?
Reeling.
Like, yeah, okay, sure, yes.
Some of our listeners might be real. Okay,
Reeling.
I get it. No one's actually reeling from listening to us ramble about this stuff. But
yes,
we're back at it again.
We are.
We've got more great end user data. This time exploring loss prevention in retail.
This one's a good one.
I think it is too. I think we've always done really well with these end user surveys, but I feel like we have kicked them up a notch this year.
We have.
And I'm quite proud of what we're doing there.
Yep.
So this is a topic that is very timely in the world of like ultra tight margins in retail.
No doubt.
We're talking about the returns crisis, and how that's affecting all these companies. It's very top of mind.
It is
for the people that we talk to. We have 100 execs that we talked to in this survey. We're going to find out how shrink is reshaping self-checkout, where theft and loss is actually taking place, or they believe at least that it's taking place, who's making the loss prevention solution decisions in these businesses, and we're going to give you some suggestions for offerings that you should be adding to your portfolio. I think actually that's the gold.
That is the gold
of this entire thing. All kudos to James Cordy.
It is so good.
He put this article together and he came up with those ideas for like solutions you should be thinking about.
It's masterful. It's just genius.
Really good stuff. So check your basket. Make sure you leave any additional items in there. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
Welcome to Blue Star Nation. Blue Star Nation podcast is brought to you by Elo. From self-ordering and self-checkout, timely conversation for what we're going to talk about today, to visit or check in, self-service kiosks let customers take control of their experience. With Elo's versatile modular product offerings, businesses can create innovative solutions that adapt to consumers' changing behavior. Whether you're looking for a complete touchscreen solution to integrate into a kiosk, looking for compute to expand your computing capabilities, or a fully built self-service customized kiosk solution, Elo can support all these things. They work with partners across the industry, including kiosk manufacturers, ISVs, payment integrators, and VARs. They're happy to help, and they've got the products to back it up. Elo's self-service options help restaurants, retailers, hospitality, healthcare, visitor management, and more to improve operations, focus on the customer experience, and increase profits. I'm a big fan of that.
Yes. Absolutely.
That I like better.
They're the kings of that.
When I walk in somewhere and there's a nice touchscreen self-service thing, and it's like, boop, boop, and get my stuff done.
But I'm going to sidebar real quick. I notice what brand it is that I'm interacting with. Elo rocks. I mean, just any time I'm up there, boop, 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 it's accurate. It actually works. It's the best.
Check your Venmo. I think they send you a payment for that. Check out the array of Elo's self-service products at the link in your show notes or our show notes, and contact the Blue Star team to create the perfect solution for your customers' needs. All right, Dean, let's dive into it here. This was a survey sponsored by our friends at DataLogic.
Yes, thank you, DataLogic.
Once again, as always, as we've been doing a lot lately, we worked with our friends over at VDC Research to put this together. They do a great job with, we give them ideas. We're like, hey, here's some things we think we want to learn about. Here's some things that our partner, our sponsor said they would like to learn about. We'll give them a rough start. They come back with some fantastic question sets and ideas, and then we polish them a little bit.
That's what they do for a living. They're survey people. They kind of know what they're doing, and they're really good at it.
They're great at this stuff, and I think that's what's helped take these up a notch for us. So let's first talk about who we actually talked to. So this was 100 retail leaders. All of them were director and above. Nearly half of them were actually in the C-suite. As far as what kind of retailers, 44% said they were in specialty retail, 24% said apparel, and then the rest were a mix of grocery and general merchandise. As far as, the size of these companies, we were kind of all over the place. We went from small, just single regional type stuff to large ones. About a quarter overall were anywhere from 10 to 100 locations. So a broad swath of people, but these are clearly the top of the chain. They're clearly decision makers. And they're also, I think, a lot of the industries where all retail loss prevention is an issue, but I think you get into the specialty retail, especially high-end merchandise, apparel, and grocery in particular. Those are probably the places where shrink and loss is bigger than almost anywhere else.
So true.
Any thoughts that you had on the people we talked to?
No, but yet again, we were able to get to the right people. 47% in the C-suite. That's okay. Those are people that are moving the needle. Out there, and 20% VP and direct. So to your point, everybody's director level or above.
Yeah.
So these aren't, schleps that are just new to the industry or anything like that. And I do like who we surveyed.
You just call some random guy running a checkout counter somewhere like, I just started last week. But what are your thoughts on loss prevention? I don't know. No, we're not doing that.
I trick people when they leave. No. Yeah. It's so, and then who we surveyed. So only 18% are out of what I would call the retail, right? 18% were grocery. So what I like about this is it is skewed a little bit more towards grocery. You're right. I'm sorry, towards retail, right, whether it's specialty and stuff like that. But grocery, it is interesting that there's the most shrink is there, but we do have their voice. About 18% of them are there. So this is really meaningful. I mean, that's what I love about these surveys. It's a nice wide swath. You're right. We've got, from single store owners to large, and then we got the right people in the room. So it's good stuff. Yeah.
So I wanted to start off talking a little bit about the state of self-checkout, because I feel like over the years, as self-checkout took off, initially, and then obviously became a big deal during the days of COVID. And then you started hearing some doomsaying about it. You started hearing some backpedaling. You started hearing like, well, we're going to get rid of the self-checkout because it's not really helping our margins and blah, blah, blah. And it's wasting space or whatever. And it's all been like a lot of smoke and mirrors and a lot of, uncertainty about what's happening there. I think we got some good data about this. 96% of the people we talked to said that they were either currently or expecting to have self-checkout in their stores.
That is incredible. Right. Let's just hover on that for a second.
I've been in this biz for 9 years now. And I guarantee 9 years ago, if you'd asked that question, you may have been at 40%.
Right.
Maybe.
Well, I want to know who the 4% are that aren't. I mean, when you get something,
probably like that single store location that just doesn't have a need for it, a mom and pop shop or something.
It seems like our world is endless polling, right? Like politics and stuff like that. We're taking a poll. We're taking a poll. Well, none of them come back with 96%. Just saying that they are already using or planning to use SEO or self-checkout. That is solid.
Exactly.
So it's not going anywhere. Is that your point?
I agree. However, the other part of that though is that we also ask questions about like, hey, are you planning on changing your allocation of self-checkout? 40% said that they were reducing the number of lanes.
Yes.
34% said they were either eliminating or considering eliminating self-checkout entirely. Again, I don't know that people are actually
entirely
going to get there.
Is a strong word. Go ahead.
Right. And I don't know if that's how the survey really framed it necessarily. My suspicion would be more of we're just looking to potentially get rid of, a lot of that, but I doubt anyone's necessarily looking to bail entirely. Might not be the case. To me, it just seems like that's a little bit of an alarmist posture that does not necessarily need to be there. So now, given that, we also figured out all right, well, we know that shrink and loss can happen at self-checkout. We wanted to understand more about their perceptions of that as well. 77% of the people we surveyed said that they felt there was moderate to severe shrink impact from self-checkout.
Wow.
It's a pretty good chunk. Over 3/4 said that they felt like their self-checkout was at least fairly a decent amount, if not severely impacting loss in their store. Again,
they think that's where the leaky pipe is.
Could be perception.
I think a little bit of that's perception because you're going to see that in this survey, but go ahead.
Exactly. So specifically then we asked some questions about all right, how do you think people are, causing shrink or loss or theft to happen because of the self-checkout? 71% said that they think people would hide items. So, when you're scanning something, you're hiding something, behind another item or whatever and scanning, one thing but not the other. 52% said barcode switching. So that would be taking a barcode off of one item, putting it on something else that is cheaper, or a cheaper item, and then bringing up your expensive item at a much cheaper rate. Hopefully we're not giving people ideas out there like, man, I'm going to run out to the nearest store and start working on this. Sounds like a good gig. 49% said they felt pass around where someone made it look like potentially, because, a lot of self-checkouts, especially in higher end stores, have cameras now. So the idea being that maybe they make it look like they're kind of passing it over, but are actually passing it around the scanner and not really scanning it. And then 49% said that user error was probably part of it, which, I'm going to be honest, I've had that happen where I've...
User error? User error happens.
Had to scan 6 of the same thing or whatever and accidentally scan 5 or something, or scan the wrong, or think I scanned something and put it in the bag and then realize that I didn't actually scan it. So, a kind of a sin of omission kind of thing where, not that someone was intentionally trying to rip you off, but an accident might have happened. So let's start there, Dean. Let's look at this whole picture of self-checkout. What do you feel about this? Do you think there are some misconceptions here? Do you think there are some addressable issues? What's going on in the world of self-checkout?
So let's work backwards from where we were there. So shrink a checkout, behavioral, not accidental. I like the way that this article kind of positions that, right? So there are obviously a multitude of things that are happening, which, by the way, the barcode switching, back in the old days, I guess you would take the price tag and switch it, too, right? Yeah. Do you remember that? Are you old enough to remember?
If someone was a little oblivious and just like you got some newbie ringing it up that just didn't know the price.
Yeah, you just took the price tag off and you put it on, so it's magically that item was now cheaper. So I don't know how the barcode switch, I guess that's how it happens now, right? Like you scan in gum, but you're actually taking a whatever.
But I guess to do that, like you would quite literally need to like peel off a barcode sticker, which again, I don't feel like it's something that necessarily is possible in a lot of industries because some, the barcodes are embedded, especially you think of like grocery or whatever. But I suppose there is opportunities that you could peel a barcode off and then slap it over top of another one or vice versa.
So when it comes to behavior, right? So technology is trying to tackle all that stuff, right? And so you have this a little bit of a Frankenstein happening around the self-checkout, and then you've got cameras, you've got weight systems, you've got sensors happening, you've got a lot of things. Sometimes they're disparate systems that aren't really maybe congealed and talking to one another. So I'll make the claim, like they do with AI, that right now is the worst that's going to be. Like the technology that you're using at self-checkout is the worst that it's going to. It's only going to get better. It's going to only get better at object recognition. It's only going to get better at behavior. It's only going to get better at these things. So because when you take a step back and the nirvana around self-checkout is supposed to be around, enabling the customer with a more frictionless, a faster experience. So I'm going to go back up to the top where you were, 40% are reducing lanes or 34% are eliminating. I think that just seems really strong to me. What I think is going to happen is I can definitely see some of those entities out there, which has already hit the press. I think you've got large tier one retailers or grocers that are scaling back some of their self-checkout lanes and really kind of moving those towards more convenience items or smaller basket type transactions, whereas larger transactions are going to happen in the lane kind of a thing. So, I think that that's going to happen. So, but it's not going to go away because I think the consumer still wants the ability. Look, if all I'm doing is running in and getting 2 or 3 items, give me a self-checkout lane.
Don't make me stand in line.
Don't make me stand in line. Cashier, just beep, beep, beep. Let me be on my way. Tap and pay and go. I don't have literally a shopping cart full of stuff. So it's not going to happen. But I think that when you take all that together, shrink is going to happen. The one thing that I reacted to negatively as we're bringing this in here, the hiding items and stuff like that, or what did you say? 77% report that self-checkout has a moderate to severe impact on shrink. Okay, maybe, but you got to look back a house, and that's all I'm going to say right now.
Yeah, because we're going to talk a little more about that. But I'm absolutely with you there because I do think yes, there is theft and there is fraud and there is stuff happening at self-checkout. Honestly, my bet would be there is more accidental theft happening at self-checkout than intentional.
I don't know.
Maybe not.
This has got me a little bit because
you have the organized retail crime rings that are getting good at this stuff now.
I read in this article and I'm like, I never called it that. Organized retail crime ring, right?
It's becoming a big
or something like that.
I know. The one that always stands out to me is I always hear about the like the home goods stores or like the home supplier stores. Like your Home Depots and Lowe's and stuff. Where apparently that's a big deal there with like the tools. Like where they've got these organized crime rings that figure out how to. That's why like if you go buy tools from those big places now, like they've got like RFID tags on them.
For sure.
There's extra levels of security to keep you from.
It's
if
big
you're going
business.
Self-checkout and buying something and getting away with it without being checked first. So I do think that is a growing concern in some particular industries. I just think in general, like I don't know, a typical grocery store, for instance, I don't know how often someone's like massively, or again, I could be wrong about this, and I'm not the executives in these stores that have been watching potentially this stuff happen, but my suspicion is that 77% number is maybe a little high.
It feels a little high.
Like maybe it's a little bit more on the moderate side, if not moderate to low, and not necessarily severe.
Yeah.
Again, I could be wrong. That's why I'm not, in that business. And to that end, also, it still doesn't mean that we should be selling solutions to solve that problem.
Oh, right.
Acknowledging
for
that
sure.
they feel like there's a problem there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. No doubt about it.
So let's talk about where shrink does happen, though, because I thought this was an interesting question.
Where shrink happens.
If we're getting out of the actual, the self-checkout stuff and the assumption that just everyone is randomly trying to steal from you, there's the idea that, like in the process of, asking a lot of questions about shrink, we got a lot of insight about where shrink is actually potentially happening within the store. That's not necessarily an external threat. It's not necessarily the customers, the organized rings or whatever trying to steal from you. 50% of the respondents said that they feel like employees are responsible for shrink. 50% said that administrative errors were responsible for shrink, which I remember back to my retail days. It was very common that, you make a mistake on something, you type a number in wrong, you scan something wrong or forget to scan something, and that can cause some issues. And 49% cited fraud, which could encompass things like returns fraud, coupon fraud, or issues with e-commerce. So bottom line here is that, theft and shrink loss within a retail environment is not just about bad actors coming in from outside and trying to get away with something. The bad actors could be in the house, or they just could be, just making some clinical or clerical and administrative errors, or there might be some fraudulent stuff happening. And again, going back to my retail days, I had a couple times where
all those happened.
Had employees who were not just, I had employees that stole stuff, but I also had employees that would do some fraud at the checkout counter where they would ring something up for someone and price it a certain way and tell them this costs this. They'd give the customer back their change, but then the extra change that we were assuming was being given out, because I think what it would be is like say something was $9.50 and the person gave you a 10, but you rang it in as 20. And then you pop the drawer open. You gave them their 50 cents.
That's right.
The other 10
in your pocket.
Into that person's pocket. Stuff like that could happen. I know
time.
There's a lot more checks and balances to keep that kind of stuff from happening, but now they've accelerated that into the stuff for the returns and the coupons and whatnot. So what are your thoughts on the external threat? Does this feel a little bit more like where probably a lot of the problems are the internal threat?
I think it has to be on the table because it is absolutely a reality. So when you think about employee theft and what I was referring to back of house, it happens. When you're checking in stuff, if you don't have a robust inventory management system, it's just a clipboard and you're saying, we were supposed to get 4, of these one items and only 3 actually make it in. Well, what happened to the 4th one?
It fell off the truck.
It fell off the truck or something like that. It was a processing error. I meant to mark 4 down. Don't you see that little pencil mark there that says 4, kind of a thing.
I was on that.
It happens a lot. That happens a lot. And then when you think about the organized retail theft that is happening out there, or retail crime, now you're incentivizing employees.
Yeah, because I was say that the employee could be the inside man for that. Yeah.
Absolutely, that is happening, right? Or you're getting tipped off. And we had an executive summit. I think both you and I were blown away by the amount of fraud that is happening and just stolen merchandise that doesn't even make it off the truck. Whole trucks are being stolen.
Yeah.
And it's well, how does that happen? Well, no, they're just poof gone. Yeah. And it has happened to us.
Being driven off somewhere, hijacked somewhere. Yeah.
We have lost truckloads of stuff and it's it's just gone. So when you think about shrink, but that
is baffling, but
it's unbelievably baffling. And so when you think about shrink, that has to be into those equations as well. So I think it's very much a reality. A lot of that is happening back of house. Now, so that's why we're, obviously going to be advocates of RFID technology and back of house technology that can assist there. Just automating just getting into barcoding and off the clipboard and, some basic steps sometimes. But anyway, it happens. And so when you think about it, and what this survey is showing you is that 50% of employee theft, 50% processing errors, 49% think that it's fraud. I mean, there it is, right? It's clear that it's out there, exactly. Or at least that in the internal issue is also there.
Exactly.
So I did some research though on, where shrink is also happening, just to kind of go back to that. And I got some statistics there. So, but you were right. Grocery and supermarkets by dollar is actually the sector that has the most shrink. And I wouldn't have thought that before. I would have thought, I don't know what I was thinking. I thought it was gym shoes or something like that.
Because it's not necessarily high-end items. Yeah.
It's not. But and then within the grocery store, perishable departments account for 65% of total store shrink. Yeah. So I guess that makes sense. Now I feel bad because now I'm equating that to like people who can't afford.
Yeah,
and they're just going in and there's theft, but they're trying to put food on the table, I guess, right? If it's a perishable type thing. Now you're talking meat, specifically meat alone is 18% of a typical store shrink. Produce ranks high, deli ranks high. So, but I wouldn't have guessed grocery stores as being. So if you're a reseller out there and you got grocery stores in your area, those are top shrinkage places that it's occurring to. And then health and beauty. Apparently now that makes sense. I can see that stealing and then ending up on Amazon or eBay or something like that.
Oh yeah.
You were going to say something there?
No, I was just going to say, like, if you've ever stepped into or have, your wife or your daughter step into a Sephora or something, see how obscenely overpriced everything is in there. Like, I could see why somebody would be like, yeah, I'm not paying, $80 for that tiny little bottle of perfume.
Right.
Or that lip gloss or something, man. Yeah. It's easier to shove that in your pocket there.
Yeah, no, for sure. But then when you think about shrink and who it hurts the most, I thought this was, I researched this a little bit. Is it the large retailer or is it the SMB world? I was curious about. And the facts are, large retailers in dollars, have the most impact, right? So in the industry calls it, NRF had an article out there, around $112 billion annually that the top retailers are seeing go away. However, SMB suffers more proportionately, right? Because in 56%, by the way, of small retail businesses experience theft just in the last year. So, but when you think about it, it has a heavier impact on SMB because their inventory isn't as big, their dollars aren't as big. Their margins
they're probably not building that into their.
They're not building it.
The large retailers have an expectation of a certain amount of loss.
That's right.
Whereas the small ones, like they don't. I mean, they know it might happen, but they don't want to lose anything.
That's right.
It's not something that's part of their business.
Yeah. So when you're a reseller, so shrinkage is happening, and what better way to try to enable the SMB marketplace by implementing some of these solutions that can help mitigate some of it at least, because it really has a dramatic impact on the SMB.
Yeah.
Yep. So shrink's happening.
It is. It's out there, whether you like it or not. Let's talk a little bit about the buying authority, because this is a question we try to ask on a lot of these surveys.
I like this, right?
Always super helpful, because sometimes I think there's just, you don't know who to go and who to talk to, or maybe the expectation for a lot of resellers might be like, well, I got to talk to the IT person. They're the one that's going to have to put all this stuff in. They're the ones who will make these decisions about this stuff, right?
Yep.
Well, this situation, the loss prevention situation specifically, is one where no, IT is probably not the people to you're going to have to work with them at some point for implementation, but they are not going to have much of an involvement when it comes to actually making.
I thought that was fascinating.
Decisions.
Yes.
So basically, the execs are where you need to be. So 54% of the executives said they have final approval, or 47% and at least an influence on these purchasing decisions. Whereas of the people we surveyed, they only 3% said that IT was involved on the final 3%, budget concerns.
Yes.
Right. So they're just not. IT's not.
Are they even in the room? I mean, like on the decision making? No.
I know we could advocate for hey, the IT people should be involved to make sure that whatever systems you got in place, the integration and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, which makes sense, because again, this was an executive survey, but also it became very apparent that the executives are very concerned about this issue. They are concerned about loss prevention. They are concerned about shrink. They are concerned about fraud. They're concerned that this is happening in their business.
Yep.
So much so that they are trying to figure out what they have to do in order to mitigate it.
Yep.
Because I'm sure it's impacting their bottom line, and it's if they've got shareholders, there's probably accountability that's happening there, or just if you're a business owner, your own personal accountability here.
Yep.
So they're the ones that are making these decisions to go out and have these conversations, and as well as picking these solutions. So if you're looking for the place to start, this is more of an operational and executive issue. Get their buy-in, get a discussion with them about what's happening in their business, what they are hoping to solve, how it's impacting them, and then use that to to leverage your solution before you get to the IT folks and get for the implementation part of it.
Yeah. Really good stuff. One of the headlines that I love in this section, and you have to read this article because this is where it starts getting into the meat of it. Who is the buying authority? Yes, but then also how to approach it. It's just genius. But here's the call out. Lead with business outcomes, not tech terms.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the IT is the tech term people, right? So once you get approval, okay, now you're going to talk, everything you just said, now you're going to need IT involved, and you're going to do the tech talk and all that great stuff. But in the precursor to that, to actually sell it, no, you need to lead with a business outcome. And so, what the reason why you have to read this article are just look at the heading, what VARs bring to the market. And Cordy has done a great job, and whoever helped him, if it was just him, brilliant.
Let's not spoil that entirely yet, because we're going to get to that in our value segment.
Well, then I won't go through them. But anyway, there's good stuff there. Hang on for just a second. But it's important to realize that is exactly the important way to do this, right? To talk about the business outcomes, not the tech terms, because when you think about all the executive leadership that is in the sales motion here, which to me, again, was very, very surprising that you would have 54% of executives saying that they are making the final approval. I mean, to your point, it makes sense. It's business. Right. It is business critical, to figure out shrink, but to have that heavy of an involvement was a little bit surprising to me, but it clearly came through in the survey.
Yeah. The line here in the article that I thought was useful was going back to the self-checkout piece. So this was talking about the idea of, the expectations that these executives had about what was going to happen with their self-checkout and whether they were deciding to scale it back or not. So this is a major signal to VARs. Selling self-checkout as faster checkout in quotes or better customer experience is no longer sufficient. Retailers now expect any self-checkout deployment to come with built-in controls and accountability.
There you go.
So I think understanding that this is simply part of the conversation now is super important here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as Dean hinted, we are going to talk a little bit more about some of these suggested VAR offerings that you can put out there. We'll get to that in our final segment here. But before we do that, a quick note of what's happening around BlueStar Nation. And this is one we're kind of excited about. BlueStar Academy has arrived.
Yes.
And we had our first batch of courses last week as we are recording this. Actually, this is released as well.
Yep.
It was a big hit. At least we think it was a big hit, but don't just take my word for it. Here are some actual quotes from some of our attendees.
Okay, I like that.
Being new to the industry, I found everything valuable as it supplemented what I've learned so far.
Nice.
Event was a 10 out of 10.
Ooh.
Love hearing that.
I like that.
This was a great experience.
Nice.
Lots of good feedback we got out of this. Honestly, this is one of those things, we brought in Mike Monticello to stand up this whole training program for us.
Yep.
It's always one of those things where until you actually do it, you're never quite sure I knew we had great content. I knew we had a great execution idea. I knew we had this structured out in a way that should have been successful. But until you do it and you have people coming in and sitting down and you're training them, you're talking to them, you're developing a relationship with them.
Then you survey them.
Yeah, and then you survey them. You just don't know. Right. And overwhelmingly, the feedback has been very positive. We've got things to tweak and fix.
Of course.
Because, we will do that constantly. It doesn't matter if we've been doing this for 10 years. We'll still keep tweaking and fixing things.
That's right.
But I think this was a good start. Now, if you aren't familiar, the Academy provides 1.5 days of insightful educational training on some of the core channel technologies, key industries, use cases, and the kind of questions that you need to be asking to help sell the right solution. It's a very solution-forward and solution-focused conversation as well.
Yep.
Whether you or your employees are brand new to the channel, you're a veteran who wants to refresh your knowledge. We had some folks
we had vets in there, yes.
Hey, I just want to learn more and constantly be learning, or someone who's adding a new segment of their business. Or
that one I love.
I'm here because I am expanding my business. I'm adding a new revenue stream and hoping to add that. And I need to learn how this stuff works. So I'm here to learn.
Yep.
BlueStar Academy has got you and your people covered. April courses are open and enrolling today. They're already starting to fill up, but we've got more to come down the road. So go to academy.bluestarinc.com to learn more. We got a link in the show notes for that too. I highly recommend checking it out. And sending some people in. We put on a pretty good gig for them.
I was going to say, it's more than just training. We've got visit to a solution center that we've recently built out, so you can get hands-on and see these solutions in action. So it's one thing to hear Mike talk about it and all that, which is awesome in and of itself. But then we throw you in a bus and we take you over to Solution Center so that you can take a look at it.
Which, by the way, is in the same place we filmed this podcast.
Bingo! So you can come get a selfie here. And not only that, but then we show you around BlueStar. You get introduced to some of our thought leaders and the people that can help you drive your business. class with our BDMs and our sales team and stuff like that. And then at the end of the night, because it's a day and a half, we also take everybody out and have a great time. So it's more than just coming in, sitting behind a desk. Exactly. I don't want you to think Bueller. No. Bueller. Nope. It's not that at all. It's learning. Yes, it's experiential as well. So it's really good.
Exactly. Yeah. So great stuff. Check it out. We look forward to welcoming our next classes in April. All right. Hey, while you are out there looking up things about BlueStar Academy and registering for some classes for you or your folks, take a moment to like and subscribe our podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel if you're not already. Leave us a comment. I love seeing comments pop up in there.
Yes.
They're fun when they show up, and I'm always interested to hear what people think about some of our episodes. If you're listening on your podcast platform of choice, if there's an option to leave a rating or review, especially on Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star rating or review. You can throw a question in there, leave a comment. I'll be happy to maybe share some of that stuff on air as well. Mm-hmm. Check out our Blue Star Nation blog. That's where these surveys live. This great data we've been sharing with you. We are going out at least every 2 to 3 months or so and doing one of these surveys, putting this stuff together. There's a lot of other great content we're putting out there to help you understand how to operate within our channel, learn about some of the big players out there, understand trends, what's happening in certain industries. Check out the BlueStar Nation blog. It is a fantastic read. Submit your ideas for the podcast. We want to know what you want to hear about. If there's a survey we should be doing.
There you go.
If there are customers you want us to talk to and find out what's happening and what's going on in their business.
Absolutely.
To create something like this, you got to tell us about it. We have ideas of our own. Our sponsors have some ideas of what they're looking for, but you are the important part here. So tell us what you want to hear about it.
That's right.
And as always, reach out to us with any of your thoughts and ideas, or just to let us know what you think of the pod. You can always find us on the Blue Star LinkedIn page, where we have all kinds of great fun content alongside some of the cool business stuff that we're doing. And email us directly at any time, nation@bluestarinc.com. All right, Dean, I teased it earlier. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
But,
good
stuff.
I think as a VAR value segment of this podcast goes, I think this is about as legit of one as you can get. Because this was not something like, it's not like it's not like the survey was asking for suggestions of what these people needed and what kind of go-to-market solutions we should be selling them. This was something that Cordy inferred and took from all this data we collected about, hey, here's what you should be bringing to market to help solve some of these loss prevention challenges.
Yep.
I'm going to run through these offers real quick, just the high level, and then if you want to dig in a little bit further on some of these options. So first, what he suggested, the self-checkout hardening kit, a simple bundle that fixes the self-checkout weak spots without requiring retailers to rip out lanes, or basically just adding some camera stuff, some computer vision, some AI in there. Automation to coverage LP package. So that's helping them with, filling their staffing gaps. So risk mapping, the high risk zone mapping, or again with smart cameras, some, software for alerting, some remote monitoring for off times, or, when there's not as much staff out there, and alerts. RFID and loss prevention, syncing those things up. This is something we really didn't talk about from the survey, but, we did note that there is, that RFID, obviously we think of as more of an operational tool for for inventory management or asset management, but that can have a huge role in loss prevention too, especially in some, higher end stores and higher end products. So item level RFID tagging and incorporating that throughout your business as a loss prevention tool as well. And then finally, the loss prevention control loop, a full store approach that blends sensors, video, RFID, and POS analytics into one unified workflow. So Dean, what did you think about these? What stood out to you here? I mean, should this be just like the template to go out and start building out your loss prevention infrastructure?
Yes. What I love about this part of the article is that it now gives you actionable intelligence to go into the marketplace. But key to all of this, everything that you just read off, is a partner ecosystem in order to make that occur. Yep. So when you think about it, and these are great, meaningful kits, or in-a-box solutions is what we would typically call it here. But I mean, think about it. So let's go back to the self-checkout hardening kit, right? You're going to need partners. You're going to need the ability to piece these things together with overhead and side cameras and the types of things that you need to do that. That is what the industry is asking for. These are the business outcomes that the industry is looking for. So if you can solve that riddle, and by the way, we've got a lot of programs that can help you with that, with Tech Connect and things like that, you are walking in with solutions that are business outcomes that those C-level executives that we just referred to all over this particular survey are very, very interested in.
Absolutely.
And what I think this survey does is just a brilliant job of giving you what it is, what's inside the solution, and then why it sells. I love that. Why would this sell? Well, it's giving you a path to have that conversation around the business outcome of why this particular solution is important and how it's going to have a meaningful impact on shrink, which of course is on everybody's idea. So I think you did a good job of reading through it. You have to go read this article and read these because it's a path. You've got 4 options. Boom, right there.
Yeah. I think you even just grab one of these and add it to your solution stack, and you are probably going to give yourself a leg up and give yourself some brand new opportunities to go out there and win.
More than that, this article also pulls out, you got to scroll down a little bit more because it gives you insight on how then to manage your sales motion around this. And I don't know if you were going to get into this,
go for it.
But this is brilliant too. Lead with business outcomes, not tech terms. How many times have we said that? This is way, and he even gives you like little ways, vignettes of text here of like what you can actually
what
say.
What you should say and what you shouldn't say.
Yeah. Frame shrink as an operational problem with financial consequences, right? I mean, this starts getting the C-level people that are involved in the finance of the business itself, message that helps around that. For example, here, shrink is lost product. Lost product means empty shelves. Empty shelves means lost sales. I mean, this article does a really good way of just kind of helping you manipulate what your message is and how you can connect to the end users with what the business problem is. Here's the outcome, and here's how you should frame it. Sell operating models, not just technologies. I love this one, right? Too. It's not just walking in with a playbook of, here's how the technology is going to solve this. Who cares? You need an operating model around this. Like, how's this affecting staffing and KPIs and stuff like that? These are, when you set those right expectations around, how this is going to affect operating models, much, much better place to be. Right. And then finally, bring templates and playbooks to the tables. I love that, right? Yep. Bring things such as 90-day pilots and things of that nature. Have a playbook that you're walking in with that is actionable and can show a path very, very quickly to having these business outcomes implemented in a fast manner. Anyway, really, really good stuff. You got to read the article. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
And to me, this all is the perfect encapsulation of what we said at the beginning, which is the fact that the executives are the ones who are making these big decisions, who are having the authority here. Yep. And a conversation with these executives is going to be very different than the ones you might typically have with an IT or a more technology-focused person, where if you're not talking about again, to your point, the outcomes, if you're not talking about how this is actually going to improve their business, save them money, grow their business, solve challenges, make it easier to answer to their shareholders, make them look good, whatever it need be, then you're starting off on the wrong foot. And I think this is an absolutely fantastic. Like we would love to know that you are literally letting these words out of your mouth.
Yes,
in conversation.
You can use these words,
and you can take all the credit for it. You don't have to say BlueStar told you to say that. No, it can all sound like it came from you, and we'll be happy.
But I guarantee you, if you just take the coaching that this article gives you, and then when next time you're at a customer, you use some of this stuff, I guarantee you will see a different face on your customer.
You will.
Like a light going off in the top of their head.
No one else is probably talking to them the same way.
Bingo. Exactly. Bingo. Yep. That's it.
All right. That's good stuff. Again, check out that article. It's linked in the show notes. Follow us on BlueStar Nation site. There's a newsletter you can sign up for there to make sure.
Thanks, DataLogic again. Can we say that again?
Yes. Big time. Thanks to DataLogic for sponsoring that one. Hey, let's wrap up as always with what's on our radar.
Yes.
This is where we talk about something in the world of tech, innovation, science, news, business, entertainment, just whatever we feel like chatting about today, because we like to just randomly talk about things. Dean, what's on your radar this week?
Do you wish you had whiskers?
No.
No? That was just like a hard no. Like, no, I don't wish I had.
No.
Well, let me rephrase it a little bit. Do you wish someday you're going to have a humanoid, potentially? Do you want your humanoid to have whiskers?
If in the context of like how like cats and dogs use whiskers to, keep help them not bump into things and sense what's happening around them.
All right,
yes,
sir.
That would be useful.
Here's the headline. Elephant whiskers have unusual material properties that enable them to feel objects and recognize where contact is made, compensating for their thick skin, right, and poor eyesight. Right. So that was the headline that intrigued me here in this particular article. So anyway, the Max Planck Institute of Intelligent Systems ran a whatever, not a survey, but did a study on in conjunction with the Department of Haptic Intelligence. Yeah, I like that. Like haptic intelligence. Yeah. I get it. And they kind of studied elephants and they learned a lot, right? The sense of touch. When you think about an elephant, like how does it? You got, I don't know how thick their skin is, but it's pretty thick. Yeah. Who knew they actually use their whiskers as a feeling mechanism around that? So, the sensories that they have in their hair, and there's different types, there's different stiffness and all this. So they dove deep into it. But what they have learned is that it is actually very applicable to implementing into robotics, which is obviously the thing that connected with me. Right. It's all about robots, if you ask me. But anyway, the findings will be used. Robots. That's right, to develop a robot-assisted sensor technologies that mimics the kind of the stiffness gradients that the elephants have on their tactile hairs, and to help robots, feel the world differently than just the hard metal that they're made out of, right? Yeah. The metal and the plastic and stuff like that. Well, how do you get a robot to actually feel like we do human wise? Maybe they're going to be whiskers.
You tell them a sad, emotional story.
Oh boy. And try to get them to weep.
That's useful. I mean,
all right. So you don't want whiskers, but maybe your humanoid could use some of those. Just kind of get a sense of the surroundings.
Could be helpful. Because I could see this as we get into these experiments with humanoids and robots in our home or whatever, a lot of accidents and bumping and so anything that can, I know you've got LiDAR and sensors that can probably help out with a lot of that too, but there's something interesting about that tangible.
We'll see. So if you do see whiskers on your humanoid, now you know where it came from. It was a study around elephants.
I feel like this is just going to engender a whole mode of robotics and that are not humanoid, that actually maybe are cat-like or something,
yes,
or cat people or elephant people or something. I don't know.
What could be dogs? Dogs have whiskers.
That's true. It could be dogs.
Yeah. Everybody loves it.
Maybe that'll be the big debate. It'll be did you get a humanoid? Did you get a caninoid? A felinoid? What are you going to pick for your household?
And doesn't have whiskers.
Yeah.
So what's on your radar?
Because if I have a humanoid that looks like a normal human, but it's got giant whiskers, that just might be.
You're going to feel like you're at the Comic-Con or something like that.
Exactly.
What am I doing here? Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm with you there. Yeah. Fair enough.
All right. So my radar here, an interesting article that the Washington Post put out back in December about the TikTok algorithm, basically, and understanding how TikTok chooses and maps videos for your interests. And the TikTok algorithm has long been a study in wow, this is amazing how it can quickly identify what you're interested in, what you like to see.
Boom, all of a sudden it starts showing up.
Right. And kind of, dictate what should be in your algorithm.
All right.
So now this article did come out before the change in ownership recently. So we're not entirely sure how that's going to affect the algorithm, if it will at all, or if things will remain the same. But this was a fascinating look at how this works. So it's a very simplistic article where they start off asking you to kind of pick a topic, and you can pick between gaming, cats, and politics. And then it basically explains to you how choosing that will then dictate a little bit about what the next level of connectivity that might come from that. So for instance, if I choose gaming, it says, all right, well, gaming videos are often watched by people who also enjoy military and tech content. So if you watch a lot of content on gaming, you're also likely to see more videos about those other topics as well. Right. To the point now, they mapped this out and worked with a bunch of people they basically went through 121,000 videos to map this out.
Oh my.
And figuring out where it could potentially lead you. And they created this fascinating kind of spray chart, dot chart or whatever. It's actually more like hexagons of this is one of those things you should definitely go check out the article.
Click on the link.
Scroll down a little bit until the chart kind of pops up. But it's basically like a spray chart of various hexagons that represent regions. And the regions, if they're connecting together, mean that you are more likely to find stuff within those regions. Or alternatively, sometimes being on opposite sides can reflect opposite interests or whatever.
Okay.
ways to engage you with kind of somewhat like sort of similar, but also opposite content. It's a fascinating read through, but you've got stuff like, where, for instance, like, if you're on the gaming side of things, you're like kind of like in the lower right quadrant, which is where also like TV and movies, sports and comedy might be. If you're into more of like family stuff, like that's over on a side near where food and Olympics content might be. But there's also, what I found fascinating too, there's some weird little islands. Okay. So there are some of these little hexagonal points that are not connected to the rest. They're off in their own islands. 3 examples that I thought stood out to me: true crime, fashion, and Taylor Swift. And basically their positioning was that those are so off kilter because they are kind of like somewhat polarizing and not necessarily completely indicative of what else you might be into. Yeah. Like, I'll be honest, I would probably see some Taylor Swift content in my feed because I like Taylor Swift. Well, I don't know, but that wouldn't directly connect me. Like, for example, but basically they were suggesting like, all right, well, a lot of times this folks on the Taylor Swift side might also be into the cat stuff because Taylor has cats and like that's, sometimes a commonality there might be there. I don't give a crap about cat stuff. I would like dog stuff.
I think that breaks the algorithms because Taylor Swift is so ubiquitous and it's so many. It's across
that's
everything.
My point. I think
she's across everything.
That's my point. It's on its own island because you cannot directly map it to anything else.
You can't. It maps to everything.
Unless there was a giant hexagon in the middle that was just Taylor Swift and everything was connected to
there
it.
You go.
Because here's the thing. You could be someone who's heavily into music but not necessarily care about Taylor Swift.
Right.
Or you could be very much into Taylor Swift but not necessarily care about the Chiefs despite the fact she's dating Travis Kelce or whatever.
Yeah, see, it's I don't know. That one I can understand.
Right.
But the true crime, and what was the other one?
Yeah, the true crime was the interesting one, and fashion also.
Fashion.
But I guess I get fashion to some extent because different types of people can be interested in fashion in a lot of different ways, but not necessarily be trackable to a lot of other stuff as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a fascinating look at how this stuff works. Yeah. Obviously, you can dive deeper. There's a really cool feature in here also where you can type in a hashtag, and it will show you what are the most similar hashtags that are related to the one you picked, and also what the opposite hashtags on it. So, for example, going back to the gaming one again, if you used the hashtag gaming, it says the opposite of gaming is hashtag summer vibes. So I guess to say if you're into gaming, you're probably not going outside very much.
Yeah, true, right? Exactly.
But some of the similar stuff is obviously, some of the related hashtags about gaming, like Nintendo and whatnot. Whereas different stuff would be things like moms of TikTok, weddings, Mother's Day, family time. It really is fascinating because I agree. It is in the time that I've spent on TikTok, it is a fascinating algorithm. It is interesting to see how it will find something that you're interested in and keep feeding that to you, but also find different ways to kind of branch you out a little bit. I do feel like I'm someone who is not particularly some of the algorithm works as well on as maybe as it should because I don't engage with a lot of posts. Like I watch them stuff. I will like some stuff here and there if I really
less than 3% of people engage with stuff.
Right. So, but I'm not like, because a lot of the algorithm also works off of whether people are commenting, if they're sharing videos, if they're responding to them, or if they're like, doing like response videos themselves to stuff or whatever. That has a lot to do with it.
For sure.
And if you're not necessarily doing a lot of that, your algorithm can be a little bit harder to suss out, but it still can get pretty damn interesting about how quickly it can figure you out.
Well, there you go.
So there's a little bit of insight into maybe how TikTok, at least maybe used to work, if not still works. We'll see. All right, that does it for us. That's what's on our radar. It's time for us to sign off for this week. But hey, I see what you're doing with that barcode. Knock it off.
No swapping.
None of that. We got cameras watching you on all these other cool things that we implemented because we read the Blue Star Nation article.
That's right.
Until next time, folks, we'll see you out there in Blue Star Nation.